He was the one who discovered it, so he felt compelled to open the hatch first. As he pried it open, metal screeched against metal, unveiling the long-forgotten contents inside. A crowd gathered, their faces filled with disbelief as they shook their heads in astonishment. Suddenly, without warning, someone seized him and yanked him away. Casper glanced at the left path. The right one was well-trodden and favored by hikers, while the left could hardly be called a path at all. That was the one that intrigued him. It was time to explore the Estonian swamp. Towering lush green pines reached for the sky, and soon Lake Kirtner came into view. As he meandered along the squishy shoreline, he noticed some unusual markings in the mud. He had heard they might have been obscured by years of growth, but they were unlike any shapes he had encountered in his many adventures. He nudged them with his boot. Then something else caught his attention, a rope. Could there be a sunken boat? He scraped away the mud and tried to pull it, but it wouldn't budge. It was already a strange situation, but he knew he had to tell someone. He dashed home and dragged his bewildered parents outside. It took a while for word to spread through the village, but soon a large crowd gathered. The men surrounded the area, eager to uncover any clues about what lay submerged in the lake. One of them spotted the rope partially buried in the mud. He dug it out with his hands until he could grasp it, then pulled with all his strength. The wet dirt gave way easily, but the rope still wouldn't move. They all joined in, but nothing happened. Even with a dozen strong men and women, whatever was at the other end refused to come up without a struggle. They pulled and pulled, but to no avail. They didn't have the right equipment or the manpower to unearth the mystery. It was time to call the authorities. Soon, the deep rumbling of a huge bulldozer echoed around the forest. The help they needed had finally come. They tied the rope to the gigantic machine as its driver prepared to move the vehicle forward. Several people also thought to chip in and hold some parts of the rope to help, but even the extra horsepower wasn't enough. Whatever it was, it had to be massive. Everyone rushed home to grab their own ropes and bring in their own vehicles. It was 8 hours of steel cable, shovels, machine power, and manpower. Even little Casper Limpton, with his enthusiastic hand like everyone else, was desperate to see what his discovery really was and committed to however many hours it required. Suddenly, they all felt something move as everyone collectively pulled. Minutes later, the tip of something rose to the water's surface. People rushed to reclaim it from the mud, using shovels to dig the dirt from around it to make it easier for the bulldozer to drag it out. At last, the mysterious object finally revealed itself. The sun had started to dip below the tree line, and everyone let out a gasp as the beast slowly rolled up and out of the water like an algae-covered monster. Some of the onlookers knew exactly what it was and dashed to scrape and hose off the hardened mud on its surface, revealing an enormous open hatch. It had been hours since they had partially hauled a massive metal object out of the muddy water. Even as their energy sapped away, the men wiped the sweat from their brows and continued to remove the layers of mud, revealing eerily familiar white symbols. With their intrigue driving them on, they had come this far. Now they readied themselves for the final haul. With one last mighty pull, it was finally out. Everyone fell silent as they watched the metal behemoth roll out of the lake, squelching and fighting against the heavy mud, streaming torrents of water over the villagers. None of them could quite believe the piece of history they had resurrected. But what was a war tank doing here? That was the question on everyone's mind. What was the World War II war machine doing in a lake in an Estonian swamp in the middle of nowhere? Jasper sprinted up to look inside. This was a once-in-a-lifetime event, and he would not miss it. Through the water, he saw something shiny. "Mom, are those big bullets?" Casper felt strong arms pulling him away. "Get away from that," his mom yelled. There was still ammunition rolling around in the cabin. The tank was in amazing condition, so there was a chance, though the shelves could be dangerous. It wasn't long until they heard the wailing of sirens. A camouflaged truck and men in combat gear rushed out of the armored vehicles and towards some of the crowd. Someone must have called the authorities as soon as they saw what was inside. Everyone stood still and dead quiet, wondering if they were in trouble. One of the officers came up to Casper. "You found it?" the large man asked. The boy gave a small, scared nod. The man smiled. "I'm impressed. Well done." The soldier looked around at the villagers and said, "We need to step back while we make sure it's safe." Between the army and internet research, the answers to the mystery finally emerged. It took 2 weeks and every available hand to bring the tank completely out of the lake. The team managed to haul the gigantic machine far up the bank enough so people could go around and take a closer look, many taking photos of the major historical find. But how had a Russian-built tank with German markings ended up there? Experts confirmed that it was indeed a war machine, a Soviet-built T-34-76, to be precise. The 7-metric-ton vehicle was the prime element in the Soviet army in their battle against the Germans. Aside from being underwater for an astounding 56 years, they discovered another amazing detail about the symbols and numbers painted on its side. This particular tank was thought to have been captured by the enemy and repainted with their own symbols. Even though it was a capable machine that could navigate all kinds of environments, the main theory is that the Germans dumped it so it couldn't be retaken. The next remarkable development occurred at the Gordodenko Museum. One intriguing detail about the tank was its apparent lack of damage. While some surface metal had eroded slightly after decades underwater, the Russian war machine still appeared to be in excellent condition. In fact, it was so intact and solid that there was hope it might still function. Experts explained that the tank's pristine state was due to the low oxygen levels in the marshy bog that became its watery grave, which helped preserve the metal and minimize corrosion. Everything remained intact as if the metallic beast had been submerged only a year ago. But was it still operational? During the restoration, curators were astonished to find that they could start the old diesel engine without needing any spare parts. They also recovered a total of 116 pieces of ammunition and were able to answer the pressing question of why the tank was located in that specific area. The Eastern Estonian Northern Front had witnessed intense battles, with around 100,000 soldiers perishing and more than 300,000 wounded. The fighting forces surged, and countless tanks and soldiers flooded the narrow, swampy region. The final battle occurred on August 3rd, when massive amounts of Soviet armor and artillery attacked German positions. However, little changed until August 10th. In the summer of 1944, German troops captured the Soviet trophy tank during the Battle of Blue Mountains. What makes this discovery particularly rare is that the tank fought for both Russian and German sides during World War II. Yet it was sent to its watery grave just 6 weeks later. On September 19, 1944, the Germans began their retreat along the Narva front line and deliberately abandoned the tank. The German army was unwilling to leave anything behind and destroyed what they couldn't use. Today, the old T-34 is on display for all to see at a war museum in Korotenko village, a priceless artifact discovered by a curious young boy. What do you think of this story? Let us know in the comments section. Please like, share, subscribe, and press the bell icon to never miss the update from our channel. Thank you.